As I keep making these videos, I continue to describe that process of how to turn the verses inward upon yourself, how to use it to change your life, how to interact with it. And I have found that for myself, that's a difficult thing to describe. I can see what to do and I understand what to do, but it's hard to convey that sometimes. And it finally occurred to me as I'm continuing to grow and develop with this, a good way of describing it. There's a turning point that I realize what's happening. And let me put it to you this way. First of all, my name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to Just One Truth. Okay, this is how you read spiritual verses. And this is how you read a mythological story, or how you read spiritual teachings, how you read religious teachings. I'm going to show you this, but here's the easiest way to understand it. Take a story or a teaching, and we can start with a very simple verse. I've used this one a lot, and I think it probably works out well because not only it helps me show a verse that I'm very familiar with that I made up, but it shows people a verse all the time that they can use too. So anyway, this verse is, "An anchored ship cannot sail." This is painfully simple as an example to start with, but it's a good starting point. There are three components there: the ship, the anchor, and being able to sail. That's it. Take those three components and just put them in your pocket. We'll just make up metaphors along the way. Okay, now, don't look at the physical world. Close your eyes at some point and look inward. This is where you begin to make the verse about yourself, but this is the difficult part sometimes. You take those component parts that you just gathered, the anchor, the ship, and the sail, and you make them parts of your inside. When you turn inward and make the verse about yourself, those elements become representative of parts of you. And in this case, it's very simple. We'll just cut right to it and say that if you're hanging on to something, you're going to continue to cycle around it. If there's something that you are very angry about in your past that you can't forgive, you can't let go of, you can't deal with, or something you're hanging on to, something you're clinging on to, somehow in your life, you're going to continue to cycle in a derogatory way around that over and over again. At the same time, we also harbor experiences, characteristics, desires, love, natural things that we have inside of us that also cycle around in our life. It's kind of a mixed bag. A similar concept from Lao Tzu is, we join spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center whole that makes the wagon move. Like in my example, the ship, we are the ship, we're the vehicle. In this case, the wagon, we are the vehicle, we're the wagon. What is inside the hub is what makes cyclically the wagon move, but where does the wagon move? The wagon might not be moving to a good place, it might be moving to a good place. It doesn't say, it's simply telling you that hanging on to something will cause you to cycle around it. It doesn't say whether that's a good or a bad thing. They both work. If you hang on to something good, you'll cycle around it. Hang on to bad, you'll cycle around it. It's the same teaching. The Buddha also has one. These are actually part of the twin verses and his first two verses in the Dhammapada. That's how important this is. All that there is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. And the twin verse to that one is, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, instead of an evil thought, a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. So here in the first one, you saw the ox that follows the carriage, the evil thought. There is something that continually, cyclically comes around if evil somehow is a part of the axle of that wheel. Again, you are the cart moving along. You're the vehicle in the story. That is what the analog for you becomes. These are very simple ones, and you can see that the verse that I made then, the anchored ship will not sail, replicates these two. I have another one that also replicates it for the people that are inland that don't have ships. You cycle around that which you cling to. Any of these are styles, really, that are just words that are used to replicate the same teaching. They're different analogs that are put in place that represent the inner part of you. So when you grab that teaching and bring it inside, all the component parts of that teaching become parts of you. And once you realize what the values of them are, what analogs they are, and you see how that they decode, you can readily interact with them mentally and realize that this isn't simply a verse to carry and wonder about and think how beautiful it is. It's something that you can actually look at and say, this is an instruction on how to heal myself. Let's grab another verse from a teacher later on and show that in their own words, they taught the same thing too. Jesus said, "Judge not. The measure with which you judge others will be judged likewise unto you." So we turn it inwards, we grab those pieces, we're judging, and we just grab that and go inward. What are we judging? Our conscious is judging our life experience, and we're putting that away. We're grabbing onto something. We're putting away something that we're not going to deal with. If we've judged it, we have put it away with some kind of a value system into our subconscious. And then cyclically, the judgment with which we judge, the way we put that away, is going to continue to come back and cycle and get us again and again. You see 3 different ways of nesting the same verse, but once you turn it inward like that and realize that's what they're doing, and approach it like you're dead serious about trying to accomplish it. Use your imagination and pretend you live in that world where they're teaching this and that you want to accomplish this. And you follow it through. Where does it get you? It gets you to a state of being. In all cases, it gets you to the same place. It gets you to the same mental place. The words are different. The words are analogs. We're going to a mental place. We want to weed our garden. We've got to get our land back. Speaking of that, let's grab a more complicated one. I'm going to grab one you may not be familiar with. Let's jump to the very first chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. I will do my best to nutshell this and cut to the chase with apologies to any die-hard Hindus out there who will not be happy with what I'm doing. I'm not here to teach Hinduism. I'm looking for something different. Okay, so briefly, the parts that I want to cover are that Arjuna is on the battlefield with Krishna as his charioteer. So he's in his vehicle. He's ready to go. This entire story is going to unfold inside of him. And you, if you're taking this journey, you are Arjuna. You are the hero. Whoever begins this journey, you are that person. And all of the things that they experience are parts of what you have to deal with inside. Okay, so yeah, as they're getting ready to go then, Arjuna is concerned and he's talking with Krishna, who lets him know, I cannot help you. I can give you advice. That's it. So here we see someone is taking on the role of being the teacher, of being the one who is the guide. I can show you what to do, but I can do nothing for you. It's all up to you to do. And everything is in the cart and they're ready to take the adventure. The adventure is he's got to get his land back. And the land belongs to his family, his brother. It is something that has been taken over and used by large amounts of his family members over the years. And they had permission to use it for a while. Then they're supposed to give it back. But when it was time to give it back, they didn't want to. And so here's Arjuna having to go back and get his land against his own family members. So the components that we're going to find in here is that they're using family members as analogs to describe the characteristics in your mind that when you started out in life, you picked up things that are wrong. And you've got to the point where you want to get rid of that stuff. You want your mind back. You want your head back. You're done living that life where you are responding to life and you realize, oh, I can take charge of my own life. You're at that moment stepping back from that. You're ready to take the journey as Arjuna here is getting ready to go. Some of the elements that we're going to find in there is just before the battle begins, he goes up and down between his army and the army that he's going to go after. So he's showing a split between the outside, the good side, and the bad forces that he's going to go get. That's going to appear as a common theme, some kind of a barrier, a doorway, a river to cross, somewhere to get from one place to another to begin this journey. And that's what's happening here. The family that he's going to get, he's even grown up with. They helped him. So all of these represent the mind. The land is the big space. This is what you're going to get back. You're going to get back what belongs to you, because you've got to a point in time where you realize in life, I haven't had control of it. Life unfolding has been in control of my life. Yeah, I have moments where I'm in charge, but things happen that trigger me, and I want that to stop. That belongs to family members that I grew up with, and it's time for me to go get it back now. That is what is nested in these stories as we get into it. And that is how these big ones unfold. And I left out a bunch of details. He starts out gathering people. You find that here. You will find, I know I use this one a lot. I'm going to use this one because it's simple to use. Jason and the Argonauts. It's not the best myth to use, but it's a simple one, so I'm going to grab it. But you'll find the same elements in there. He's getting ready to start. He's got to gather up 40 people to go with him. And he names all of them, the characteristics. You will find that happening in Moses' work. You'll find it done. Jesus needs to collect the disciples. You see it happening here in the Bhagavad Gita. And I believe that they're either building those up into the story as just things to make the story bigger so that it can just last longer, or those names perhaps are something that represents some characteristic in their culture. Good, bad, loving, kind, those sorts of things, that at that point in time that those names meant something to them. And I don't want to dig into all of that. I don't think that it matters. I don't think that that is all that critical. For me, as I read this stuff, I see that sometimes people might identify your anger, your shame, your hatred, your sense of self-worth, and other people might simply come along and say your good side, your bad side. So we can section that up into positive or negative things, derogatory or beneficial, whatever terms you want to use. Sometimes there's a lot of details in there that may not be all that important. There's a lot of things that you could just say, these are the bad qualities. These are the things that you have hidden away in the darkness that you don't want to deal with. All of them. They're in one lump. You don't have to identify them all individually. You can see them in a pile. We look inside and that's what we see, if we're honest with ourselves. Okay, let's move to a Jesus verse again. Check this one out. I'm going to speed this one up by not reading or by not putting it all out word for word. Basically, there's a landowner with a vineyard. We got the same thing going on. We've got the person, you are the landowner. You have a vineyard. And you have rented it out to other people, and it's time to collect what it produces. And those other people that you have produced in life, the way that you have judged, the way that you have put things away, have caused you to essentially give up your vineyard. And now you're sending efforts to get it back. You want to get your land back. And what is happening is there's a lot of opposition here. What we're seeing as a representation of how difficult it is when you're trying to change your life and change your past, how difficult it is to make that change, that it keeps coming back and haunting you. They are killing even your son, who is actually the person who is the heir to the field. Anyway, that whole parable ends up saying, when the owner of the vineyard returns, he's going to bring them to a wretched end and rent the vineyard to other tenants who will give him the crop. So what we've got going on inside of here is we make all of those component parts of who and what we are, our garden, our fruits, the things that we produce. Harvest time is whenever it is time for them to get triggered, good, bad, or indifferent. That we need to, in this case, we're looking at the ones that are keeping us from taking the field back. You destroy them. You're wiping them out to get the field back and then giving it to qualities and characteristics that are of beneficial quality for you, who will provide you fruits that are enjoyable fruits. Same teaching, radically different packaging is all. You are seeking to get your land, your field, your world, your universe, whatever it is, your mind. You're seeking to get it back all the time. All of these teachings are that way. Let's grab another Jesus verse, the one about the wineskin. We don't put new wine in an old wineskin, otherwise it ruins the wine. If you put old wine in a new wineskin, it ruins the wineskin. So, well, that's kind of a weird thing. We grab those components and we bring them inside and we make them a part of who and what we are. We are the vessel. We are the wineskin. The wine is what? What we're putting in us is what we're consuming. And consuming in the spiritual world is learning. And if we are the old wineskin, we're our old selves. We haven't had a rebirth yet. So here we are trying to completely start a new life while leaving the old in place and find out soon that the past comes back to haunt you. It's still there. And so the only way to make that change is to take care of yourself first. I mean, you need a new wineskin to put new wine in order to have a new life. You don't just shift to a new life. You make sure that your old life is left behind. I've mentioned this one before, but it fits right here again. But it's the same story as leaving Pharaoh. We are, here we go, step back to a Hindu kind of monstrous, huge story to contain the teaching. Now we are Moses and we are leaving with our million people and we're trying to escape our past, the prison of our past. And it comes after us and you have to part the Red Sea and go through and leave that behind. All of these are teachings that nest this idea that we have to leave the past behind and move on. But anyway, the point is, after working through a few of them, that's how you work these lessons. You grab the story, you start at your conscious mind, you turn inward, you look at the things that are there, which are the things that you carry. There's 3 parts to you, though, that you have a conscious, a subconscious, and you're connected to a larger field, so be aware of that. And we experience sensations from each other in that larger field, so that can be something that is present. This is the father with the subconscious, it's the son, or it could be the husband and the wife, that the things that we do that create the pain, the shame, the hurt, we try to hide those. That's putting garments on them. There's a lot of metaphor and just representations like that that are constantly in there. If they're talking about covering something or uncovering something, stripping off your garments, that is stripping off the things that you hide behind. You've got barriers up here. You've got one between your conscious and your subconscious. And then there's barriers, walls we call them, shells, something between us and the things that we don't want to deal with. Those are barriers that we must also overcome. That is where we go from one place to a very dangerous place. That is represented in these stories as a very evil, dark place. And that is the part of us that we don't want to deal with. If you were to follow the religions literally, if you were to take Christianity, if you were to take the teachings of Jesus, you could still be a Christian and go to church, but if you were to follow the teachings of Jesus, you would experience a wonderful life. If you did it in Buddhism or if you did it in Taoism, if you did it in Hinduism, if you follow these through without understanding the inner meaning, but you're doing the love, the forgiveness, all of that kind of stuff, you will get to that point of happiness. And you might attribute it to your version of God or your belief system or whatnot. It doesn't matter. They all work. But yeah, you can't just be a practitioner of that and call yourself that. You have to actually go through the procedures, through the steps that are taught. And if you're somebody that can't let go of the supernatural, that's seemingly what the story exists for. You can follow the supernatural. If you don't believe you can do it, if you think that there's ghost spirits or that the prophets were some kind of magical people that had capacity that we can't do, and you must relinquish that to a higher power in order to make it work, and then you do the forgive, the love, have no enemies. If you do all of the teaching right there, it's very Buddhist, it's very monastic, it's very Taoist, it's very pure. It is very pure. And you will achieve the results of that, regardless of which method you follow. If, however, you're like me and you go, there's no supernatural, the teaching is not only there, but that is probably who made the teaching. It is nested in everything. I've had Christians tell me that that's New Age stuff you got there, buddy. This is the oldest teaching there is. You find it in Mesopotamian flood stories. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope it helps you explore your own your own methods. Pandora's box, that massive stuff that we have inside of us we don't want to deal with. That's what it is. Go look at those things. Go see them. Go play with this. Pretend like when you close your eyes and you go in your mind, that story is unfolding inside of your imagination, in your head. You're sailing across the ocean. You're going through barriers. You're leaving the past behind. You're defeating your dragons, and you're trying to get what it is that makes you feel better. Love one another. I'll see you in the next video.